Okay, the live stream is kicking in. All right, good morning, everyone. Good morning, I know. Thank you and welcome to Tea Talk. It is a global vibe. We are here this Saturday morning, as we are every Saturday morning. I have a wonderful guest here by the name of Larry Sand. We are also here on Power 88.fm, which will be here with us in a few minutes. I want to thank you again. Now, I'm always talking about if you are an entrepreneur taking the weekends to spend time with your family, that is extremely important. We get so busy in the hustle and all those different things that we forget that we got to spend time with the family. So if you got some time, get out. I think it's supposed to rain, but find something that you can do. Located here in beautiful Vacaville, California. We are going to have a great conversation today about our lovely, wonderful educational system here in California. And just a plethora of information. Had the privilege of connecting with Mr. Larry Sand via the internet. He has a wealth of educational experience, wealth of knowledge. And so we are going to get an opportunity to hear and get connected with that today. So thank you for joining us again this morning. And welcome to those that are on Power 88.fm. We are syndicated on iHeartRadio and Live 365. We are coming to you here today live. And so thank you for joining us. Just to get started here a little bit, I want to make sure that are we live on the radio? Perfect. Excellent. Welcome, Power 88.fm. I just moved and pulled the trigger way too fast. I'm so excited about this conversation. I talk about this every week. I know people are tired of it, right? But welcome, Power 88.fm. If you are scrolling through YouTube, this is a wonderful conversation. If anyone that you know is interested, please go to YouTube. It's at Tamori Richardson. It'll bring you right to our live conversation. So let me just hop on and get into this because this is going to be an hour-worthy conversation. So I have here with me today a gentleman by the name of Larry Sand. Welcome, Larry. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Tamari. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Absolutely. So let me tell you guys a little bit about Larry and why I stalked him a tad bit on Facebook, okay? So Larry is the president of CTEN. It is the California Teachers Empowerment Network. He started his teaching career in New York in 1971. He started teaching elementary school as well as English, math, history, and ESL in the Los Angeles Unified School District in 1985. Larry, as I stated, is the president of CTEN, California Teachers Empowerment Network. It is a nonprofit. It is a nonpartisan, non-political group that is dedicated to providing teachers with reliable and balanced information about professional affiliates and about position on educational information. It was formed in 2006 by Larry, and in 2011, it expanded, CTEN expanded its mission to helping the general public, for them to understand about the educational system and what was going on within this country. I just definitely want to note a couple of your notables as well, that in 2011, Larry joined the National School Choice Week Planning Committee and became a board member of Choice Media and the Association of American Educators. In 2014, he became a policy advisor at the Heartland Institute. CTEN maintains an active and strong new media presence, reaching out to teachers and those interested in education reform across the USA and across the world. And with its popular Facebook page, whose members include teachers, writers, think tankers, and political activists. So again, I want to welcome you, Larry, to our platform today.
Thank you, Tamori.
Now, you had such a plentiful bio, you guys, that I didn't get a chance to go over everything. And we're going to make sure that you guys have the link so you can go and check out Larry's complete biography, because I know you've also been a panelist in many different states around the world as well. Is there anything else I think that would be really plentiful to let the audience know about your wonderful journey?
Well, my life is now, I'm sort of phasing out CTEN, and we'll be phasing it out in about a year. I think we've sort of lived our life and now need to move on. So my primary time today is primarily spent with writing. I write pretty much every week for American Greatness, Front Page Magazine. I have articles on City Journal and many other places. It's just a good way to get the word out, and that's how I came to you. And so I just decided that it's just a good way to as I say, get the word out. And I do some public speaking, not as much as I used to. I'm getting up there in years, so I don't have quite the energy I used to have. But I speak usually frankly, at Republican clubs. I just wish I could get a gig at a Democratic club, because their kids are being affected by our very poorly run education system also. But that's a tough sell. But if anybody can help me do that, I'd appreciate it.
Well, you know what? I wanted to get into some very specific questions, but I'm going to probably jump around just a little bit, because I do want to talk about, what is it, the American Greatness? And I want to talk about an article that you wrote in December of 2024. But I want to ask you a question that is going to be so general, and you're going to be like, look, lady, I don't know. But I want to ask you, because I think you have your pulse on this. What do you see is one or two or three of one of the main issues we have in our educational system here in the US? Because, one of my reasons for asking that question is we consider ourselves such a powerhouse. We're the world's police. We're the financial mecca in this world. And yet our kids aren't reading. They aren't graduating from high school. They aren't graduating from college. What is wrong with this system as you see it?
Okay, well, there are many different areas, but a huge glaring something we all need to assess are the teachers' unions, because they essentially run the system. I mean, they have various diktats like seniority. When I lost my job in New York City in 1975, and it wasn't anything wrong with me. It was just the city was going bankrupt, so I had to lay off teachers. They didn't lay off the poorest performers. They laid off the most recently hired. Now, I may not have been the greatest teacher in the world, but I was a lot better than the teachers who kept their jobs.
Mm-hmm.
So the seniority system is terrible. Even worse is what's called is the tenure, which is really called permanence, and that's the key word, permanence. After 2 years in California, it varies around the country the number of years. It can be typically 2 to 5 years. After 2 years, a teacher has what's called permanence. That means they essentially cannot be fired.
Right.
There's, I mean, I work with teachers who shouldn't have been allowed near children.
Mm-hmm.
They were alcoholics. They were buzzed at school. Everybody knew it, but the principal couldn't get rid of them. It's a terrible system. There was a case in 2012 called Students Matter, and they documented that out of 300,000 teachers in California, 10 lose their jobs every year. 8 of those are criminals, and just 2% of them are incompetent. Now, there's no way on God's earth you're going to convince me there are only 2 incompetent teachers in California. In the private industry, I'm sorry, you're fired. You go find another place to work. Here's 2 weeks severance. Have a good life. Not in California. And then the last thing are the dismissal statutes. To get rid of a teacher is so arduous that principals don't even do it. They just move teachers around to a position where they can do less damage.
Right.
it's just a terrible system, and so much of it is, as I say, the teachers' union's fault. There are other
Hmm.
areas, but I mean, I can go into the ed schools, which are the late great Walter Williams referred to as the slums of
Right.
our colleges, and they are. I mean, the ed schools are terrible. They don't teach you how to deal with kids. They just teach you this. I snoozed through my classes. I got all A's. I didn't do anything. I got 10 A's and a B, something like that. I don't remember. It was years ago. But anyway, there's tons to carp at. But and the last thing I'll say is that parents need to wake up to all this.
Right.
They're the
Right.
they're the key at this point because unions aren't going anywhere, but the
Oh,
parents can take charge.
absolutely. And one of the things I was going to say when you started off saying that you tended to speak a little bit more in Republican spaces as opposed to Democratic spaces. Why is that? Well, just being in the chamber world that is extremely political and hungry and thirsty and all these different things. The unions of any magnitude are heavily involved in politics, and they are heavily dependent on in the Democratic Party. I mean, most candidates cannot even push through. And so when we look at our political candidates that are being pushed by the units, are not the unions, are not pushing the best, the brightest, the smartest, the ones with the strategic plan. They're pushing like they're pushing with the teachers unions, right? Just to be able to funnel through folks, which is not useful to kids who need that education and aren't getting the best of that education.
Yeah, well, when the teachers pay dues, they don't know, and this is one thing that CTEN always did is get, facts to teachers because teachers getting the information from the school district and the union, and those are the two last places that they really should be getting information from. So we just try to get honest information, unbiased. I mean, I'm
Yeah,
very biased in my writing. Clearly, I have a certain points of view, but in
sure.
C10 we're unbiased. And most teachers don't know that so much of their dues goes to politics,
Mm-hmm.
all on the left. I mean, I think the latest figures, I think, I mean, don't quote me on this, but it's close that 98.6% of the National Education Association political giving goes to Democrats, and about 1% goes to Republicans. And believe me, the 1% that goes to Republicans is probably in an area where two Republicans are running against each other, and they're giving the money to the left leaning leftist leftist leaning of the two.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. So, yeah, I mean, just for starters, these are political entities. And I know we haven't gotten into all the stuff that students are being taught about, things they shouldn't be taught about in
Sure,
schools, but
right.
that's, and the teachers' unions are a part of that. And one last snipe at the unions. Schools were shut down. I mean, especially in California, ridiculously for so much time during the COVID hysteria.
Yeah.
And once again, that was the unions were really behind that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. One of the things that you mentioned that I am a huge proponent for is that we spend a lot of time holding the schools accountable. We have to make them accountable. We have to hold the teachers accountable. And we have to hold school boards, the trustees at these schools accountable that will watch it all collapse and don't have a plan for it. But just as much as that, I'm hard on the parents. Like, I feel that as a parent, and I have two kids, both of them are in college now, it's not the school's responsibility to educate and lead my kids the way. It's my job to make sure that they're following the school plan, to make sure that I've already set the things in place. And we are finding that more and more parents are less involved. And it's not just what people think, it's the urban or inner city kids or the disenfranchised. It's the middle class and up, because guess what? They're giving them gadgets. They're not checking on it. They're having their own lives. It is a plethora of parents that are having children, ditching them off to school and telling the teachers that they don't even know, they're not engaged with, they don't know where their educational standing is, they don't know how the kids are doing in school. Now, you teach my kids what they need to know. That is not the teacher's responsibility. You have them.
All I can say to that is amen. I don't have too much to add. I grew up well, in the 50s, in the 1950s, not the 1850s. And my mother could send me off to school then and pretty much know that things are going to go well. And they did. The teachers were very dedicated. They were all women. I mean, not that men are bad, but it was just sort of that time in the 50s when
Right.
teachers were women, and I got a good education.
Yeah.
These days, you can't do that. And if you send your kid off to school, you need to, a parent needs to, and I say this all the time, and I've written this, a parent must ask their kid every day, and I
Yeah.
mean every day when they come
Mhm.
home, what did you learn at school?
That's
What did your
right.
teacher teach you? Did you understand everything? Did your teacher say anything that made you feel uncomfortable? Did you teacher say anything that you thought was weird?
Hmm.
You know, you just, I don't have all the questions, but you get the
Right.
idea. And I mean every day because,
Yeah.
you know, and it's not, it doesn't have to be a lengthy conversation. It would be
Sure. Sure.
5 minutes. But
Yeah.
yeah, and a lot would change because when kids open up, you know, you won't have one day where little Johnny comes home and saying, "Hi, my new name is Linda. My teacher said it was okay."
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
no, you need to find out these things as you go along, and then you need to raise hell. If there's a problem, you go to the teacher, then you go to the principal, you go to the school board, and you don't let anybody sleep until you make your feelings known.
Yeah.
And if you can swing it, get your kid out of that school.
Yeah.
Private school, homeschool, charter school, anywhere but that school. And
Yeah.
parents need to wake up to this.
Absolutely. Parents, wake up, wake up. These are your kids. This is not the students' future. These are the kids that are going to be out in the world. And it's so important that parents are involved. You're right, asking how their day is. I am amazed when I hear about a young kid committing suicide and the parents didn't know. Well, how did you not know? Or then you found out, oh, well, my kid was being bullied. Let me tell you, I have two kids, a boy and a girl, 19 and 18 years old. You couldn't bully my kids and tell me that everyone in the state would have known. It was not an option. Parents are advocating for their marriages, they're advocating for their relationships, they're advocating for their jobs, they're advocating for their financial standing. They're not advocating for their children, and that is the worst thing of this all.
Yeah,
All the
yeah.
worst thing.
Once again, all I can say is amen. You're right, Tori.
It's
Uh,
horrible.
Nothing to
You,
add.
I really want to segue into what's going on in the school system right now. And I got to tell you, I'm so grateful my kids are out of the public school system because you don't have control over a lot of the wackadoodle stuff that's going on. Now, let me just say for full disclosure that I support everyone's right to live and be however they choose to. What I don't appreciate is the presumption that you can infringe that upon my children while you're trying to have your freedoms. And I'm going to give you an example, and I want to segue into a question for you. When my children were in elementary school in here in Solano County, and I think it was my daughter. And the teacher that came in was a new lesbian teacher. They hadn't had a teacher that was gay in the school. Now, I respect everybody's right to be whoever. I treat everybody with respect. It's not for me to judge. It's not my place, and I don't do it, right? But what the teacher decided to add into her curriculum without talking to me as a parent is that she was going to teach about lesbianism in the classroom. Well, you don't know what my religious or my thought process is. You don't know how me and at the time my first husband was raising our children. The agenda was she wanted the kids to know that her lifestyle was right, and if anyone said anything else, they were wrong. And my daughter came home and was telling me about her teacher. One, I don't know why my kids need to know you're a lesbian. That's your personal business. They don't even need to know that. And they didn't even know what that was. So they wouldn't have treated you any different. You just now put something and now I have to explain it of what it is when they would have just loved you because you were their teacher and you were a person. So I had to go
How old were your kids when this happened?
probably about 8 years old. And so I had to go up to the school and talk to the principal because I was furious
Good.
and explain to the principal that this is not okay, not because she's a proud lesbian, but she thinks it's her right to come to school and tell my
Yes.
kids what is and what isn't acceptable. And it wasn't just me, it was a storm of parents, and none of it was anti homosexuality. It's just you don't get to come to school and tell my kids what they're going to and what they're not going to do. And they are my children and my responsibility. And this was a long time ago when you really had still had some reason in the land. And she was removed from that class. It was a lot of parents was like, I don't want this. I don't want this. I didn't sign up for this. And so I think that is something that I want to kind of dove into because I've been very, very vocal about this while supporting every and any community that you are put that the school system in California in general is putting the teachers at great harm and risk when they are saying to them, if you have a kid comes up to you, Sally decides she want to be Simon, you are now told to lie to that parent, keep something quiet. Now, these are mandated reporters that are being told it is okay to lie, mislead, manipulate, and keep a parent out of the concept and conversation with their child. I would sue every school, any school, every teacher, their kid, their grandmother, and their step grandmama and their daddy if that happened. That is egregious to me. Give me your thought process on that.
Okay, well, once again, well, first of all, I'm stunned, although I shouldn't be. 8 years old, oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the mandated reporter angle. And for those of you who don't know, at our first staff meeting every year, it was drilled into us, if you suspect, now you don't have to know, but even if you suspect any form of child abuse, you have to report it. Now, the teachers are the abusers.
Mm-hmm.
This teacher's a perfect example. And you also, you brought up the law here in California is AB 1955 prohibits, I said prohibits teachers from telling parents if their child identifies as gay, has a name change in school, they don't have to, they not only don't they have to tell, they can't tell. I mean, there are myriad laws that are similar. I don't have to get into all of them, but I mean, this is just shocking to me. I mean, and
Yeah.
this is what I mean. Granted, California is California, but you know, it,
Yeah.
it it's got to be. And I mean, there are a few lawsuits going around now coming from conservative areas. Just say this has to end.
Yeah.
We don't know how it's going to wind up, of course, but yeah, no, it's just a terrible, terrible way to do things.
It really is. And I can't imagine as a parent myself that I would ever think it is okay to come and interfere in a family. Now, there's a child that's being abused because they have their own, identity of how they want to live their life. That's a different story. But if my daughter or son comes to an adult at the school and tell them that they're looking at this, tell me how the school system that is in partial relationship with helping to keep the family structure stable is in fact doing that when
Right.
you are alienating family members from each other. I do want to make sure that those that are listening to us on Power 88.fm, we're getting ready to take a quick break and we will be back with you in a short, quick minute on Power 88.fm. We are live. And so I just, Larry, I'm shocked and amazed by that. I really am that is okay, and we're in a system that's allowing it to be okay.
Yeah,
Let me.
the sick part, well, we know the sick part, but the sad part is that so many parents are still don't know or are okay with it. How can you not
Mhm.
know about it? You're a
Yeah,
kid, for God's
yeah,
sakes.
yeah,
You know, like I'm Jewish. I had a real Jewish mother, and you know, she wasn't exactly a helicopter parent, but she was a little too concerned with me, just a little bit. And
absolutely.
but now it's like the reverse. Parents just send their kids off and just assume that everything's going to be peachy and keen.
Yeah,
It ain't the truth. That
it's not.
well,
And welcome back, Power 88.fm. And then also the reality of that is that it's not the teacher's responsibility. We have so many parents that say, hands off, you're at school, let the school deal with it. And this is why we have bullying, because we don't have parents at home. Like there's so many different layers to this completely. But I think no matter what goes on, we got to get the parents more involved. When you're not involved in, and I say this all the time, every show, I know they're tired of me hearing me say this, but that people are not involved in the political aspect of it. You don't know who your city council is. You don't know who trustees are. You don't know who your school board is. Well, your school board is helping to direct in which the ways that it's going to go. Do you know who they're electing into position, whether they're for or against your ideology or your belief system?
Yeah, I mean, if there's one area that a parent has to, political sphere that a
Yeah,
parent needs to get involved in, it's the school board. There's
yeah,
many, just, a lot of state diktats, like the horrible law I just talked about, AB
hmm
1955. But a lot of stuff is determined, on the local level,
right,
and parents need to go to school board meetings and raise questions and maybe run for school board if you have any
yeah,
common sense. And the current school board members don't, and there's a pretty good chance that's the case.
yeah,
Yeah, just as an aside, parent also there are parent groups out there. There's like Moms for Liberty and Parents Defending
hmm
Education who are doing this, and I would urge any parent who's has their mouth open agape now, um, check out these groups, Moms for
yeah.
Liberty, Parents Defending Education, because they're organized and they can help you, maybe point you toward certain areas that you can become involved in.
Absolutely. And none of this is anti anybody. What it's saying is there is a time and a place for these things, and the time is not during school hours, and the place is not at
Oh
the
yeah,
school.
yeah. No, I'm hardly homophobic. I've had
Yeah, of course.
homosexual friends my whole life, but teaching 8-year-olds,
Hmm
if somebody was, if your kid was in a park, your 8-year-old was in a park, and there was a seedy man with a trench coat talking to your kid like this, you'd call the cops. But if a
Absolutely.
teacher does it, it's okay.
Right.
Hello? No.
Yeah. Absolutely. I was just looking up the numbers of where the educational system for the United States stands here, with our population being so mass. And it says that we, on the educational ranking system, that we are, I think we are number 13, I think it is, in education. And either way it go, that's horrible. Like we're the country that has the most freedom. But I
Mhm.
think this, to me, the United States is like a teenager. When you give a teenager too much freedom, they can't help but to run naked in the streets. They're running wild all around the place because
Right.
what does the teenager do with freedom?
Right.
And
Yeah.
we don't have enough boundaries where we should have them. Everything has just come a free for all. Let me ask you this: being that our percentage is so low, because it's low, it shouldn't be anywhere under 3. We have different deviances. We do have an issue with gun control in this country that affects our school system. We've got all the guns in the country, and we have a lot of mass shootings that are happening at the school. That's not great. We have a lot of poverty in the most powerful country in the world. Our homelessness, especially here in California, is off the charts. Matter of fact, the governor said last year, and it was put in the newspaper, that $24 billion that has been put into homelessness to a lot of these bootleg nonprofits. We don't know where the money went. The homelessness is still egregious. And it was just announced with President Trump appointing um, past California State Assemblyman Bill Asaley, who's magnificent, by the way, to U.S. attorney. And he's made it very clear we're going to find out where this money has gone for homelessness in California, and people are going to jail. Simple as that.
Yeah, Bill
Because we
O'Reilly
have
is.
done we have absolutely done nothing. But how do you think other countries are killing it? They're getting it. I mean, their educational system, they are stellar. They have an education system that is promoting education, the growth, productiveness. How do they have it right? How do we not have it right here in this country?
Well, once again, I have to go back to the unions, because clearly the United States isn't the only country with a union. But in Finland, for example, they're more like guilds, like professional guilds. They really try to emphasize quality in the profession. They're a professional organization. The teachers' unions are unions where they have one goal, is to keep every teacher on the job, keep the dues coming. They raise their dues every year. And other countries aren't run like that. And that to me is the most glaring difference. And also, I just think in general, Americans have become very lazy, because we always had a great education system, and you get sort of fat and happy, and you close your eyes a few too many times, and blank, all of a sudden things have gone to hell in a handbasket, and
Mm-hmm.
we are going to hell in a handbasket right now in education. Not to put too
we,
fine a point on it.
yeah, You're right. No, you're absolutely right. I don't know if you saw this, but here in Solano County, there's a teacher that attacked a student, and it was in the newspaper. What I found when I read up on it and was kind of diving into it a little bit more, he's teaching at a high school, which can be arduous in its own kind of lane, right? But the kids were allowed to be so well, I don't even want to say that, because let me say allegedly that the kid was being disrespectful to the teacher. I wasn't there. He ended up snatching and dragging, it was a girl, the student out of the classroom, and the kids caught it on, oh yeah, it's a big thing. The kids caught it on their phones, because they're allowed to have their phones during class. They videotaped the whole thing and put it on social media. It was absolutely egregious. But let me say this. And I don't know, and I'm not commenting, I'm only commenting on the story. I don't know the story through and through. I don't know both sides of it. And I would be horrified if a grown person grabbed one of my kids, even at the age they are now. But I'm also finding, where we kind of jumped into the parents, is that there's a level of unruliness that is being allowed in the school system,
Oh
and
yeah.
the kids are just running amok, and it's being allowed. I mean, I see that on
Well, yeah,
YouTube
because
where
if you
teachers.
stop it now, you're racist. I mean, it's ridiculous. Yeah, you're right. The behavior issues are mounting, and schools don't do anything.
Mm-hmm.
They just, oh, gee, Johnny, I guess you have a tough home life. You have a single
Right.
parent, so that's okay. You just go beat the hell out of the kid sitting next to you, and we understand.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, maybe I'm exaggerating, but not by too much. And
Right.
yeah, that is a very big problem, and it's mounting. I don't think it's going away.
It's not. Yeah, it's significantly growing. I saw a young girl on YouTube that attacked her teacher. Teacher didn't know what to do. She was cursing her out, and then finally really attacked her. And this is, a part of the educational system, where when you can't control what the teachers are doing, then we know you have no level of control and aspects for what the parents are doing. I think there need to be mental assessments for the teacher, because I would just grab my stuff and walk out and be like, listen, you can have the classroom. You have to be fed up or have something going on that your recourse is to give street justice to a high school kid. But you get fed up with the lack of parent participation, the disrespect, a
Yeah,
failing system, and
yeah.
now you've got a kid who can't even read and write, and probably add, who's disrespecting you in class in the school, not doing anything about it.
Right. Yeah. Well, it's funny. I noticed when I was teaching, and we had back to school night, open school night, whatever it was called, and clearly not all the parents were there, but my point is that the parents who showed up were the parents of the good kids. You really
Mm-hmm.
want to talk to the parents of the bad kids, and the
Yep.
acting out kids, and they didn't show up, and then I realized that that's why the parents aren't showing up, because they're not involved in the kid's life, and that's why they're acting out. So there's the causes and effects going in circles there. And
Absolutely.
yeah, I mean, and I don't know what you do about that. I mean, all you can do is discipline the kid. Uh, we had a dean at my school who's an ex-Marine, and if somebody was acting out, you'd send them to well, let's call Mr. Thomas, and he would make them stand for 45 minutes. He kept the room at a very hot temperature, and walking in there, you could tell he was a former Marine, and
Right.
they didn't like going to his room, so they didn't act out too much. But short of that, what do they get? Okay, oh, I love it. Oh, we're going to suspend you for a day, and invariably,
Thank you.
bingo, the kid would come back the next day and say, "Well, Johnny, what'd you do today off? Oh, I watched TV." Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Play
yeah. That,
games.
that yeah, yeah, that's punishment.
Yeah.
That's it's a day off. I mean,
Yeah.
that's
Absolutely.
incredible. Yeah. So.
Absolutely. Now, I want to share with everyone. I'm going to put this link after the YouTube is over. So, because everybody needs to go and read this article. I want to get into America greatness, because this article is absolutely brilliant. I have a saying that I think we are creating a we are excuse me, we're creating a demographics of dummies. Our educational system is only popping out dummies. Now that might seem, I don't mean everyone, so don't send me emails and text messages. I'm not reading them. But I'm just saying that we are not focused, neither the parents or the educational system. So when this article is brilliant. So you guys, I'm gonna put it in the link. It's amgreatness.com, but you guys will be able to click directly on it. And so this is an article that was written December 2024. I find it to be abundantly accurate. America's government run school system is failing, still stupid in America. I have to know your thinking and reasoning behind this article and kind of a little summary and synopsis. You got to read it, folks. It's brilliant.
Yeah, well, in 2006, John Stossel, who's still around, he had this eye-opening documentary called "Stupid in America." I mean, and it was, and the documentary was just that, "Stupid in America." You know, and he billed it as a nasty title for a program about public education, but some nasty things are going on in America's public schools. It's about time we face up to it. Guess
Mhm.
what? He was absolutely right. And you know what? We still haven't faced up to it. And this was 19 years ago. 19
Wow.
years ago. I mean, test scores are down. We don't do well compared to other countries. Um, and once again, it comes back to parents. Parents have to wake
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's always going to be the biggest charge here is that the parents have not gotten and are not getting involved. I loved how the article really focused on what you said, that a lot of the problem is the union. I mean, we're not going to be able to say it enough that a lot of the problems is going to be that the parents are not involved. They're
up.
not all the parents, but the majority of parents are not involved. But then you also have kind of breaking it down to demographics and who's doing the best, who's doing the worst, and why they're doing the worst. And one of the things, being a Black American and also leading the largest Black chamber in Northern California that's extremely diverse, one of the things that I try to really focus on is where Black Americans are on the educational line. Because these are conversations that I have with our businesses. And when I get the opportunity to talk to our demographics, is that
Mm.
this is where we are. Education is the key to everything. We're not talking about social education has its place, but education where you understand math, where you understand reading, articulation, being able to communicate. We are in a microwave society.
Mhm.
Parents refuse to pull the gadgets away from their kids, and the kids that are mostly being affected by that, and I break it down for them, is Black and brown kids. So when we look at where we are on the economic pool of it all, is that it starts with education, and that we're not getting education, we're not forcing and pushing education on those lines. It makes a difference. And although some people don't feel comfortable enough saying it, I do. We're not educating our kids in the Hispanic and Black communities. We cannot continue complaining about people who are surpassing us when it's not a priority to us.
Right.
And
Yeah.
that's the reality of it. And this is what I loved about the article, and kind of the breakdown of why it is so important and what we are not doing and what we should be doing in this country and in these homes. Reality.
Yeah, well, I think I think I have something there about, what Ronald Reagan said, the most terrifying words in the world are, "I'm from the government, I'm here to help." And Reagan was absolutely right. Just as well, not really a side note, but it's on the subject. I'm
Mm-hmm.
what they call an abolitionist. I think the government needs to get out of public schools,
Yes.
get out of the schooling business, period. But before we had so-called public schools, which are really government-run schools. The literacy rate was higher than it is now, like in the
Mm-hmm.
1830s. You can believe that?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, 200 years ago. And and then people, when I say this, people, oh, well, what about poor people? Well, we think food. When we shop for food, we don't go to the local government down the school, excuse me, the local government market down the street that might sell, rancid meat and old vegetables,
Mm-hmm.
right? We take it somewhere else. And so we need to get the government out. And if somebody can't, and there are poor people who cannot afford to send their kid to a private school. Well, we give, just as we don't let people starve to death in the streets, we give them what used to be called food stamps, which are now SNAP cards. We'll subsidize them to a point, and so that they can use that money to send their kid to the school of their choice. And teachers don't have to be laid off because I mean, we're just moving, out of the public sector. So there'll still be a high demand for schools, obviously, and and private schools will be popping up. And my idea, you can't do this all at once. It would be very chaotic. So
Sure.
I would just have a plan where we do one grade a year. We start with the kindergarten, then the next year we add first grade, and it would be about a 15-year process total. But that way we could transition into, pardon the expression, transition into a private school only or homeschool if a parent
Hmm.
wants to. And
Absolutely.
things would only get better. Things would certainly not get worse, and I could personally guarantee things would improve.
There was a gentleman, Professor Lavelle Jones, I believe his name was, and he stated that we have gotten very ingrained in this country with Head Start programs and pre-K programs. He says, but what is the point in all those programs to get your kids ready if they're dealing with trauma at home, if they're dealing with trauma in the
Oh,
community, if they're dealing with elements that are going to stifle their ability to grow and learn. He said, what is the point in all of that? Just go ahead and send them to kindergarten and let it start, because they're going to fail. They're going to be behind because
mhm,
we are not setting up environments that are conducive to their growth.
mhm. Yeah, well, I mean, obviously, bad parenting is going to have its results in school. I mean, that you
Yeah,
can't help, but and that is a problem, but that is not the primary problem with
right.
schools today. It's not like parents are bad and they're sending their kids off to school. It's that the
Sure.
schools are doing too much to make those kids into bad people, and that
Yeah.
has to end.
Absolutely. We're getting ready to take a break on Power 88.fm. This is Tea Talk, a global vibe. I'm your host, Tamori Richardson, live radio. We're going to take a quick break and we'll be back. I wanted to read this, Larry, from what you wrote really quick to the audience. It says, sadly, many parents are fooled by their kids' lack of knowledge as teachers frequently resort to grade inflation. In fact, a recent study from the Equitable Grading Project of about 33,000 middle schools and high school grades found that almost 60% of students' grades did not match their knowledge, their course knowledge, according to standardized tests. I just had this conversation last week with someone that the kids' educational level is not matching those scores that are being turned in
Oh,
to the state at all. I mean, what do we think about that? Do we really think the teachers are padding these numbers because they don't want their schools to
oh,
look
sure,
inept? They
yeah.
don't want those accountability reports to look bad.
Yeah, well, obviously, if teachers are telling the truth, it would make them look bad. The kids aren't
Absolutely.
make the teachers and the schools and the school system look bad. So hey, we'll just give everybody A's. You know, that's fine.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and you use the word equitable. That's a word that makes me cringe because there's nothing equitable about equity. It's a terrible philosophy
Mm-hmm.
that it's a sham. It gives people, it's like saying, taking, somebody in the street saying, oh, gee, I'm rich. I have money. Well, no, why are you living in the street? Well, I don't know. But I'm rich. What are you talking about?
Right.
It makes
And
no sense at all.
absolutely. Welcome back, Power 88.fm, live on the radio. We are back. You know, the other aspect of this, and this is what I always tell people, that I'm not a fan of the word equity either. I like the word fair. It's good old fashioned. It means just what it means.
Yeah,
You can't lose the concept of it. Equity is based upon somebody's understanding of what equitable is. I mean, how
yeah,
often do we say marriage is never 50-50? Marriage, it can be 80, it can be 20. That's equitable to the way the relationship operates for both of those people. So I'm not a
right.
fan of it either. I just had to throw that little bit in there.
Okay, no
But so,
disagreement.
so this is where my thought process is. We know that we have an issue in the school system. We know that we have teachers. Let's start with the government first, because I do want to caveat this over to what's going on with the current administration. I agree there's too much involvement with the federal government, but I also think as Americans only, my opinion, we are so ingrained with being subjugated. I think we crave it, we desire it. We don't want to think, we don't want to solve the problem, we don't want to figure it out. So we want the government to do it. And then that way, when it collapses and fall apart, we can blame someone because we didn't have to make the decision about it and we didn't put anything into it. But this desire to be reliant on the government, listen, I don't know Governor Newsom, but I don't want him making decisions about my children and my family. I don't know how he's doing with his own kids. I don't know how he's doing with his own family that he gets to instruct, or the overall institution of school. I don't want them making so many decisions. How do we get that? I mean, I know President Trump is shutting down, or has shut down, the federal educational system, and most people don't even know, well, we still have state. So we're not losing anything from that. They don't even understand a lot of the process, but
Right,
that's
yeah,
a
yeah.
good thing.
I'm glad you brought up the Department of Education, Tamari. I've never seen so much pearl clutching and so much media giving to a non-issue.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, all that's going to happen. Okay, the Department of Education was created by Jimmy Carter in, I think, 1979 as a SOP to the Teachers Union, National Education Association. And before that, it was the Department of Health, Education, and Welfare. And so it became a standalone
Right.
big deal. So all that Trump is doing is getting rid of it basically in name only. And
Mm-hmm.
so much of the money that's being spent is still going to be spent. Yeah, some bureaucrats are going to lose their jobs, but the money that goes towards children is still going to be there. It's the
Yeah.
biggest non-issue. Plus, going to need 60 senators to go along with it, and there's no way Trump is going to get it. It's just theater. The whole thing is
Yeah.
just theater.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, anyway, I'll end my rant with that.
No, but I think it's important what you said. People have to really understand, if you're going to be an active parent and you are going to be an active teacher, you cannot, you're absolutely right. You cannot clutch your pearls and have outrage and run through the streets, screaming every time you see something on television. You have to get educated on what that is. But we have a Department of Education federally. And I think one of the biggest things that they're going to probably miss out on, because like you said, it's not a lose-lose, right? That there's a lot of grant money that's coming in, it's going nowhere.
Yeah.
It's going to nonsense.
Yeah, well, money is not the problem in education.
Sure.
It doesn't matter how much we spend if we have bad teachers in the classroom. Yeah, bad
That's
teachers
right.
making more money, they'll have more, maybe computers for every kid. So what? They don't know how to
Yeah.
read. What's the
Right.
difference? No,
Yeah.
it's just it's once again it's theater. It looks good. Oh yeah, well, more money. We need to spend more money. How much
Absolutely.
there's never a dollar amount. It's always like dollar sign MORE. That's how much money they want to spend. More.
Absolutely. So from your assessment, right, and your experience, what do we need to do to make sure that we are getting more qualified teachers in? And we know the union aspect, and we're going to come back and touch that. Is it is not the testing? Because I know there's also a caveat that you don't have to have gone to school to be a teacher, but you can get a teacher to vouch for you being a teacher, and that's legal as well. That's happening in schools.
Well, there are different states do it differently, and as I said before, the ed schools are really the slums of our colleges.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that the best way to train a teacher would be to have teachers sit in with master teachers, teachers that are shown to be good, teachers that are
Mm-hmm.
brilliant test scores, teachers that have control of their class, and have a teacher sit in there every day if necessary. They call student teachers, and part of ed school is doing that part of the time. Have somebody sitting in with a master teacher, but you need to do this much more and get rid of the ed schools. I mean, and maybe not get rid of them, but make a law that says you don't have to go to ed school because you don't
Mm-hmm.
have to. If you're going to be a third grade teacher, you sit with a master teacher and learn for 6 months. You should be able to control a class of 20 to 38-year-olds and teach
Absolutely.
them, their one, two, threes and their ABCs. You don't have to teach them the sex stuff. You don't have to teach them the political stuff. You don't teach
Absolutely.
them critical race theory. You just teach them the basics. You'll be, heralded as a great teacher. The students will be smarter. The parents will be happy. but we're not doing that, and we need to.
Now, let me ask you this question. I'm glad that you brought up critical race theory, though that's not something that's being taught here in California. The Trump administration is going through great lengthy lengths to I think he said he wanted to remove all the and I'm paraphrasing this, remove all the unpleasantries that have happened here in the United States, which is a mitigated nonsense. And my audience already knows that I'm not a Democrat, not Republican. I'm a very conservative independent. I've been very upfront with that because my views can sometimes be left or right, but mostly in the middle. Here's my concern, and I just want to hear your thought process on this. I think it's egregious to not want white, Hispanic, and Asian and indigenous kids to know about the Black experience, just as I think we need to know about the indigenous experience. We need to know about the Hispanic experience, the Asian experience. And this now being told that these certain things cannot be taught in school because for all intents and purposes, he doesn't want the white kids to feel bad. Well, the Black kids have to live with this experience generationally, at least let people know what happened so that they know that we don't repeat it. You don't know not to repeat it if you don't know. And so give me your thoughts into this madness, I think.
Well, I mean, I used to teach eighth grade American history, and I taught about slavery.
Mm-hmm.
There was no problem. I mean, slavery existed. Slavery was obviously terrible.
Mm-hmm.
Agawi eventually did away with it. I also taught them, which they are not taught elsewhere, that slavery has existed all over the world since the beginning of time, including black people enslaving blacks and Arabs enslaving blacks and Indians enslaving other Indians. Slavery is universal
Mm-hmm.
in time and in depth and breadth.
Right.
And they didn't know this. Well, they did now. Well, after I taught them, they knew that, but not before. So Trump goes a little bit overboard sometimes. I think we would agree on that.
Right.
And the feds have no business in the education realm at all, so they should just take all the money back and leave it up to the states and the local school boards what's being taught. If there's a local school and school district that want to teach critical race theory, I think it's nonsense, frankly. But if you want to do that, it's not my business.
Right.
If
Right.
you're coming to, you want to do me harm in a certain way, then it becomes my business. But if you're just teaching certain theories and the parents want it and the school wants it and the school board wants it, it's not up to me to determine, and it's not up to Trump to determine what goes on in schools. He can pull,
Agreed.
I think
Agreed.
he's right to pull the money out. We have too many people, just paper pushes that are working for the feds, and then
Mm-hmm.
they should, be employed elsewhere.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Well, I wanted to know what your opinion was on that. Very good. So we've already established that we need to have better trained teachers. Does this fall in the line of the dollar? I mean, we're going to come back to the dollar because they've been screaming for years that teachers are not well paid. Teachers can't afford to buy houses. Teachers
Oh yeah,
can't afford to live in the districts where they're teaching. Is there something to that we're getting
no.
lackluster teachers because there's not the money?
Teachers fall for this line, hook, line, and stinker. Excuse me, but it's all baloney. Teachers, what never included is that teachers work 40% less per year than
Mm-hmm.
private industry workers. And that's including prep time because they have 3 weeks at Christmas, they have a week at Easter, they have summers off. Typical school day is from about 8:30 to 3. Now, teacher, oh yeah, well I do prep work, but that's including prep work. It's also not included is our health benefits. I mean, I'll
Mm-hmm.
out myself here. I go to see a doctor, a specialist, a heart specialist. I walk out of the office, I have to give him $5. That's my part, my copay. And it's ridiculous, frankly. And
Mm-hmm.
I have a very nice pension, but the teachers are underpaid crowd will never acknowledge this. And it has to be talked about. You
Mm,
have to look at the big picture and not just believe all the baloney that they're throwing at you.
okay. So you don't think that that might be where the issue is that we're getting
Well,
such
I do
poor?
because I think people buy into it, but I'm saying
Okay.
it's not true that teachers are underpaid. And
Okay.
technically, teachers are probably overpaid compared to private industry workers. There's a wonderful website called Just Facts that delves into this, and I would urge everybody to go to that website. I think it's justfacts.com, but if you do a search of Just Facts, it'll come up. And it's a wonderful website that just explodes so many myths like this.
Excellent. So now, how do we get not only the schools to understand that there's issues, and I know this is already going to come back to the parents because everything comes back to the parents, that your involvement, the over involvement, what you should be involved in on, and not focusing on educating the kids really is hurting us here in this country because we spend a lot of time on social culture wars that we're not spending time on the basics. How do we get school boards? How do we get the schools to understand? How do we get the state to understand? We want to focus on education and get good teachers. We want to be able to fire bad teachers. We don't want teachers that are not going to promote our kids getting education.
Hmm. Well, and this is where parents need to step up. And as I say, go to school board meetings and talk and scream if you have to get your point across. Bring your friends with you, show up en masse, let them, the bureaucrats know that you're serious, that you want the system to change and you want it to change now because your private, your most prized possession, your little ones, are being negatively affected. And even if you, frankly, you don't have kids and you're all patriotic, our country is going downhill. And just even if you don't have kids, go to school board meetings anyway, because what they're being taught is frankly
Mhm.
very anti-American or anti-traditional American.
Yeah. And it's going to affect us anyway, because, we talk about our kids are the future, and I'm looking at the future and I'm like, oh, Lord, off of me before this happens.
Yeah, yeah, I know. Well, you said before we're raising a nation of dummies, and we are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We really are. We really are. Now, one thing I had said, and I've said it on my show before, and I talked to you about it before we started, I am firmly against encouraging our kids to go towards the trades. And you had a great point, but I believe that by telling kids that college isn't for everyone, we're not telling middle class and higher kids that. I don't believe. I believe we're telling the kids who parents don't have a plan for them, oh, well, they could just go to the trades, but they're missing out on good stuff that they need
Well,
at college.
well, when you say you say we, who's the we? I mean, I think it's obviously an individual case. There are some
It
kids who
is.
definitely should go to college. There are some kids who just don't have that mindset, and maybe they're really good with their hands, and they should go into a trade. And I don't think there's definitely not a one size fits all here.
All
And
right.
I think it's an individual decision that parents and parents who know their children will know what's best for those kids. And if a kid wants to be a doctor or a lawyer, obviously they're off to college. If a kid
Mm-hmm.
wants to, as I said, likes to work with his hands, or maybe he or she is really interested in becoming a chef, they don't need to go to college for that, especially what they're being taught these days.
Yeah.
They're not
Yeah.
learning much anyway.
Well, me and my son's dad had this back and forth because my son, although he's in college and he's giving me dirty looks right now, but he should know he's going to be a a guinea pig on this show often. But we talked about, trade school. His goal was to be an engineer. And he likes to, tinker with stuff. And his dad said, well, maybe he should, go to trades and this, that, and the other. And I told him no. I raised my kids. I focused. I was a very involved parent. I want my son to get an education because anything can happen with that project. Then he can go anywhere because he's educated. He has communication skills. He's learning business aspects. He's learning when he does trades to work for someone else. He's learning to take orders, to take instruction.
Okay.
And you can have an IEP, or you can have all kind of different resources in college and have support. It is not enough to tell our kids that this, to me, and for my kids, the expectation is you will finish college. Now, after college, if you want to get into a trade, knock yourself out. But your fallback is education because if anything happens, you can't even measure up to the
Well,
kid in high school.
okay, Tamara, but that's fine for you, and
Right?
it's
Agree.
your decision. Another parent might have another decision, and one way out of the battle here could be what's called a gap year.
Hmm.
After high school, let your kid take a year off, go get a
Yeah,
job in the trade that he wants to, and see what happens. And the kid might say, "Gee, I don't know. I'd much rather go to college." Okay, so I'll start college a year late. In the
right,
grand scheme of things, it's not a big deal, and they will know
right.
at that point that they really belong in college or they don't belong in college.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, that's one way out, one way to mitigate a potential problem.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's everyone's personal choice, definitely. But I really want to thank you, Larry, for being here on Tea Talk, a Global Vibe. This is phenomenal information. We've got about 3 more minutes, but I really want you to, and you said it, but I want you to kind of end with it and then make sure people have information to be able to follow you on your Facebook page and so forth. What are some things you can recommend to parents who are listening or parents who may eventually get this video if you are dissatisfied with what is going on in your school system or your young person's school?
All right. Well, I mean, I've said it before. I'll say it again. If it's a teacher problem, go to the teacher. If you don't get satisfaction, then you go to the principal. You're not getting any satisfaction in the principal, then you go to the school board and get a feeling for what's going on. And if you get sort of general agreement, nothing's happened, take your friends. However you do that, whether on social media or you have an email list or whatever, take your friends, go to the school board meeting and raise hell.
Yeah,
And yeah, I mean, start as local as possible, and that's with the teacher, and then as I say, the principal, and then the school board, and beyond that, I mean, I guess you can find a legislator in Sacramento or whatever state you live in, who might be sympathetic. But yeah, I would just start local and then grow from there. And that's about all you can do. And if you can educate your kid at home, please do that.
hmm,
And or send your kid to a private school or a charter school of your choice. Not, the school, we have a horrible system in this country. It's, zip code mandated system, which I call ZMS. Because I mean, once again, if you go shopping, you don't go to that supermarket down the street if they're selling bad fruit. You go to the one a few
right.
blocks away. You can't do
That's right.
that throughout much of this country, and that has to end.
Excellent. And how do folks find you if they're interested in reaching out to you?
Okay, well, I'll give you my email if anybody wants to contact me directly. It's ldsand at CTEN, that's CTEN home.org. I can be read typically on, these days, mostly on American Greatness and Front Page Mag. And I get reposted elsewhere, but those are the two places that I pretty much every week my stuff is on.
Excellent. And we're also going to put the American Greatness ad on there, and we'll put Larry's information if you guys want to contact him. Larry is really brilliant and a great source of information. You guys got to read this article.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Dwayne. It's really it was a pleasure being here, and we can do it again if you'd like. If any as issues arise, I love to come back. Okay.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I want to thank everybody on Power 88.fm. Those are on iHeartRadio and Live 365 that are listening. And thank you out there in YouTube land. My name is Tamori Richardson. I am your host. This is Tea Talk, a Global Vibe. We've had a wonderful guest today, Larry Sand. And continue following us. Click like and subscribe so you can get updates on our upcoming videos and conversations that we're going to have. And of course, if you're interested in being a guest on our show, go to www.tamoririchandson.com. That'll also be in the body here as well. And you guys go have a great Saturday. And parents, put those babies first or put on a condom. We'll take either one of those solutions. Have a happy Saturday, everyone. Thank you, Larry. We appreciate
Thank
you.
you.